To the zone with RGB Mike. Anthony's here too, let's ride the hype. Bigfoot's on the run, Area 51's tight. Digging deep for truth, we ain't afraid to fight. Black Earth theories got us spinning wild. JFK secrets hidden in the files. Illuminati whispers, fashion crooked smiles. I won't tune in, sit back and stay a while. Conspiracy chaos, we uncover the lies. Deep state shadows, yeah, they can't disguise. We're cracking codes, watch the truth arise. Let the chaos reign, tearing through the skies. CIA plots under moonlight schemes. Hidden agendas ain't as crazy as they seem. Voices in the dark amplifying dreams. Conspiracy chaos, nothing's what it seems. Follow the breadcrumbs, follow the light. In the rabbit hole with us, pitch black night. RGB and Mike, guided by our might. Anthony with wisdom, out of sight. Conspiracy chaos, we uncover the lies. Deep state shadows, yeah, they can't disguise. We're cracking codes, watch the truth arise. Let the chaos reign, tearing through the skies.
Let's go. We're back with another episode of Conspiracy Chaos. My name is RGB. Joining me as always, we have Area 51 Anthony and Florida Mike. What's up, boys?
What's up, RGB?
Excited about this one, man. We're going to keep it rolling with part 2 with the host of Virginia is for Conspiracy Lovers. We got Ernie back. Ernie, appreciate you coming back, man. You hit us off with so much information in the first part. I was literally, like I said, I got a whole page of notes over here. Couldn't even read my own writing a moment ago. So excited to see where we go with part 2 here. So why don't we dive right into it, right where we left off with Tectractus? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Tectractus. I had my
I'm getting there.
My mom had to listen to the first podcast I did that I said it and I couldn't get it. I started just calling it T after that. I thought it was the Tectractus or the Tectractus or the Tectritis. I couldn't figure it out, and she was like, I looked it up on Google.
There you go.
It was the first option, Tectractus. So, yeah, what we were talking about is all this esoteric symbolism and sort of cityscape that's built into the College of William and Mary. And so I started off with my my discovery that the original campus of William and Mary is a 1-for-1 encode of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and that it points all the way over to the Great Pyramid of Giza, and then that there is this Tree of Life configuration on the campus as well, and then all the different aspects of the different points of the Tree of Life coincide with the different departments in each of these buildings when they were originally created, and then that Tree of Life actually points all the way to Oak Island, and then there was all these. Good Lord, dude, I'm like stuttering. But there's all these connections between William and Mary and Oak Island in the people who were running the colony at the time, being involved in Nova Scotia, and obviously, or not obviously, but coincidentally, this Nolan's Cross configuration that they found on Oak Island that also coincides with the exact same configuration at William and Mary. And then this is where we kind of left off, and this configuration is called a Tectractus, and I had never heard of it before, and I only looked into it because if you look down here in this bottom right corner, you can see this very clear, purposeful triangle here, and then you can see that there's a road here, and these buildings are strangely kind of diagonal in placement, and then that makes a triangle there. So I measured those triangles, and each one of them ended up being exactly 666 feet by 666 feet by 666.
Stop it.
And not only that, this entire campus is lousy with measurements of 666, which, you know, to somebody with a Christian worldview like myself, you know, 666 is, you know, the number of the beast, and it's as far as we can tell, you know, when you're dealing with what happens in Revelation, you're also dealing with a revelation, a prophecy coming from a first century man who, you know, depending on how you believe or what you buy into, somebody who may have been trying to explain what he was seeing in a vision of, you know, a few millennia, we don't know, into the future, and then trying to explain it in his, you know, with references that he could understand. And then the number of the beast, it's explained as it's really not explained. It's said that basically the Antichrist had a number, and the number was the number of man, and the number was 600 or 666, right? So that's what it means coming from that side. So people hear the number 666 and they immediately go, oh man, the omen, Damien, you know what I mean? Within Freemasonry, for better or worse, 666 doesn't necessarily mean that. Their entire lore and their origin story comes from, they claim to track their origins all the way back to King Solomon, and the building of the first temple. That's where their the aspect of actual operative masonry comes from, the actual physical temple builders. And their whole beginning lore is that the first master mason was Hiram Abiff, and there is a Hiram in the Bible, but there's not a Hiram Abiff, and that he was the master mason in charge of building the temple, and then he was murdered by some guys who wanted some secrets about building the temple, and that's where they claim to derive the entire process behind masonry is, and the reason for the secrecy, and they claim to hold some of those secrets still, and then use the same process and brotherhood by which he held those secrets to continue holding secrets of their own up into modern day. Well, King Solomon, the first place in the Bible that the number 666 is referred to, that's the amount of taxes that King Solomon was paid, 666 talents of silver. So that's well before, that's the Old Testament, that's well before Revelation, the last book of the Bible. And so obviously there's sort of a disconnect there in a fraternal brotherhood that claims to be in some lodges and in some factions a Christian brotherhood, and at the very least a fraternal organization that one of their rules is that you have to believe in a higher power. You have to believe in a monotheistic God to become a brother. I personally have views on why that is. I think the higher that you get up within Freemasonry, kind of the creepier it gets. And I think that they want people who are open to certain spiritual concepts. And so they're not real keen on, recruiting hardcore atheists, materialists who aren't going to, if they hit them with the, Scientology Xenu at level 33, some atheist is going to be like, all right, you know what I mean? Get bent. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't believe in all this. I think they specifically want people, because I do think that, and I don't know if it was always like this, but I think it has developed into the higher degrees. You get far more steeped in the occult, far more steeped in Kabbalah, and all the things that, Manly P. Hall said in that book, Morals and Dogma, where Lucifer is the light bringer. You read that book, and it's very clear what Masonry kind of was meant to be in the modern age, and that's more of a Gnostic kind of deist occulted organization.
What was it called again?
The book.
Yeah.
That's Morals and Dogma. It was written by Albert Pike. Albert Pike was the guy who kind of reformulated the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, kind of brought it into the modern era in the 1800s. He was a Confederate general. Interestingly enough, he was, I think they finally just recently took down his statue in Washington, D.C. He was like the last Confederate general to be, and he had ties to the formation of the Klan. So it's kind of interesting. He had a statue, and he's got like a big memorial in the DC the Scottish Rite temple right down the street from the Capitol. And that's where he's buried, or his ashes are, or whatever. And but like I said, yeah, he was a hardcore Confederate general who is believed to be one of the founders of the Klan, and he was the last general to get pulled down. Anyway, I think I've gone off on a tangent with Pike, but yeah, Albert Pike is a very interesting cat. If you just look up a photograph of him, there's no doubt that this guy was a wizard of some sort. And all the stuff that is kind of speculated about Freemasonry, the occult origins and their beliefs and their ties into Kabbalah, and all this stuff that conspiracy theorists have been saying for years and years and years, and Masons kind of poo-poo it and they're like, nah. It was written in his book very clearly, like a couple hundred years ago. It's take it for what it is. Awesome. But anyway, so I get these numbers 666, and it immediately it reminds me of Freemasonry, and they're super into Kabbalah, that reads really heavily into their ritual. Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism. It's sort of the occult side of the Jewish religion. It came about after the destruction of the Second Temple. Once the Second Temple was torn down, the Jewish people were faced with an interesting dilemma. Christ had come and died and gone off to heaven. They didn't believe in him, and then they get their temple torn down, right? Well, within the Jewish faith, there is no forgiveness of sins without the shedding of blood, and that was the sacrifice aspect of the Hebrew religion. That's whether it be a pigeon or a fatted calf or an unblemished lamb, like they had to make their burnt offerings and things like that at the temple. Well, now the temple's gone, and they have to literally an entire people are faced with, we have no way by which to achieve forgiveness for our sins. And that is right at that point, after the destruction of the Second Temple, is when Kabbalah becomes a thing, and it's borrowed heavily from Babylonian magic and Babylonian mystery schools. And so it's almost this kind of interweaving of the Hebrew faith and the Jewish faith and old kind of darker Babylonian magic.
Was this the magic with a K? Like the dark arts magic?
I mean, to a certain degree. Now, magic with a K comes from Aleister Crowley. That comes much later on. He's the one who starts spelling it with a K, but that was kind of his point. Again, Aleister Crowley, huge Freemason, had gone through every degree of every rite of Freemasonry, including the Rite of Memphis, the Rite of Mizraim, these kind of darker Masonic kind of arms. And he was also a huge Kabbalist. So again, the number 666, I say that the first place that it's mentioned is the 666 talents of silver that Solomon was paid every year. but really there is the Star of Renfan. So if you look at the Star of David, and let me just preface this by saying I don't believe that Jewish people are devil worshippers, and I don't subscribe to the Jews run the world. I think kind of sort of what Sam Tripoli talks about. I think they're sort of middle management and have been used as a scapegoat for the most part. When you look at some of these ruling elites who claim the Jewish faith, they're not practicing religious Jews. They're people who kind of culture. You look at the Rothschilds. I mean, they were not Jewish until they changed their name to Rothschild. Anyway, so this star of, or the Star of David is a 6-pointed star, right? And that was never a symbol of the Jewish faith ever until years and years and years and years later. What it most likely was is what's referred to in the Bible. Well, not the Bible, but in some of these extra biblical texts and things that they found in the Middle Ages, or that came around in the Middle Ages, like the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, which are literal magical grimoires supposedly written by and influenced by King Solomon, because King Solomon had this long period where he kind of fell away from God, and he was, you know, he married a like I can't remember where she was.
Israelite.
No, she was a pagan. The guy had hundreds of wives and concubines, but one of his wives was a pagan, and he got really into her pagan roots and started practicing magic, and he fell away and everything went bad for him, and then he came back, you know. That's how his story ends. But in the Middle Ages, which is kind of interesting because it's around the 1300s, these grimoires or kind of magical books start popping up in Europe, and it kind of tracks if you believe that it's possible that the Knights Templar, when they were over in the Holy Land making friends with the Muslim Assassin, a crazy sect of like mystical Muslims, that we know that they had like begun a relationship with, and that they had also done a lot of like excavation in the Holy Land, and there were rumors about what they found. And right after that is when they kind of became made men and became basically all powerful. Well, they're outlawed in 1307, and it's very shortly after that that Europe starts getting flooded with all of these magical writings and these books. And in those books, specifically attributed to Solomon, he has, I think it's the Lesser Key of Solomon. He has a system by which you can control demons, and it's all these sigils and seals, and they're illustrated. And the seal of Solomon, the official seal of Solomon, is the Star of David with some Hebrew writing around it. I don't know it exactly, but that's the seal of Solomon. And the seal of Solomon translates into 666 because of the 6-pointed star. There's also a place in the Bible where they talk about when the Hebrews were lost in the desert, and I guess Moses goes up to the mountain to talk to God. When he comes back down the mountain, they're worshiping a golden calf. Well, they don't say it then, but later on in the New Testament, I can't remember who's talking. It might be Jesus. Somebody's talking, and they say that they were worshiping Remphan. And when you look back, Remphan is the equivalent of Baal. It's the equivalent of Moloch. It's an ancient Babylonian deity. And it specifically references the star of Remphan. And that star has been found to be that 6-pointed Star of David. So it's insane that the nation of Israel uses this star, and there's some really interesting threads as to where that came from on the flag, why that started being used as the symbol of the Star of David, which it was never referred to as. I mean, up until the 20th century.
So sorry to cut you off. So they have they have two different stars of Rampan. They have the observe and they also have the reverse star. One has looks like a boomerang almost is the best way to describe it, like almost the number 7 in a way. And there's also like a cow is in the middle of the other one, similar, almost like the I wanted the first one I looked at, I thought it was Bathman, but it looks like it's
I mean it, and you know, Baphomet wasn't even. Baphomet is a somewhat, I want to say it was Eliphas Levi. That's sort of a Middle Ages or later creation as well. The image of Baphomet is not necessarily it's not necessarily an ancient symbol that has come up through the years. It's a specific practitioner of black magic who developed that. Kind of the first places that you see the Baphomet is, I want to say he was Middle Ages, but he could have been a little bit later.
So do you think, all right, so everything I always see in the occult stuff always goes back to Saturn and then like the black cube of Saturn and all this, right? So do you think, like in the references of black magic and the dark arts of everything, meaning black, obviously, do you think that's just another reference to Saturn? And
I think that is absolutely possible. I've listened to a lot of guys who are a lot smarter than me and make really compelling arguments that you can sort of bring everything back to Saturn and why that was. I can't articulate it right now, but it's sort of like the elite being able to like Gary Wayne he can trace the elite families of today all the way back to their Canaanite Nephilim tribes that they came from, and I think it's sort of the same way there. Again, I can't really articulate that kind of timeline.
You knew where I was going with that.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at Saturnalia, that you know, festival, and you look at I mean, I'm gonna forget this. The Capitolium in Rome, on the highest hill in Rome, and before it was the Vatican around there, it was the Capitolium was on the highest hill of Rome. That's where they performed human sacrifice, and that was a Saturnine cult that did that. It does. A lot of it really seems to run back to Saturn, and then there's all the crazy Saturn. Was it a hexagon symbolism? And a hexagon is a cube turned sideways, and then you've got the Jewish faith where they wrap that cube thing around their head, and then it goes on and on and on.
Symbolism. There's so much symbolism out there and everything. You just got to look through the fog to see it.
You do, and I think half of it gets flooded out there from charlatans and people who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, and then the other half of it is purposely flooded so that to obfuscate what's actually happened. Just like I believe that the Jewish people are largely used as a scapegoat for what, I mean, when you really look back towards like the black nobility and the Venetians and whatnot, these families whose names you never hear, you always hear the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Astors and the Russells and everything, right? Those guys are middle management. There are like 9 families out of like Venice during the but right before the believe it's right before the De Medici era, who are all like still have tons of power, and you never ever hear those names.
Some of them started the train, some of them started the railroad industry, some of them switched their names, some were
big time. Going even further back from that, shipping, trade, banking, it's all the banking families from like the Venice area who left Rome and then ended up in Venice, and then out of that you end up with the whole Medici dynasty. And then the Renaissance
Right.
comes out of, you know, a lot of the Italian Renaissance painters and things like that all came from, they were kind of sponsored by the de Medici family. So, but back to the Tetractys.
Yeah,
So
we always go off chaos, baby.
Yeah,
That's what we
chaos.
do.
that's good. I love it, man. I can talk about things I only partially know about for a year, dude. So
No doubt.
I
No
came to the
doubt,
right
man.
place.
It's good information, though. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to be able to go.
And I will say,
Absolutely.
you know, fact check it, because I'm sure my dates and eras are wrong. If I don't have it kind of in front of me, it's just all this stuff is, you know, kind of packed in.
Oh yeah,
Pretty accurate when I was tracking it.
spinning around inside.
So
All right, let's get to
I
it.
start looking at this thing. I find these two triangles and their measurements, and then I go ahead and do a big triangle around it, and I realize that it's an exact. It's 6 each side of this big triangle, which is clearly, I mean, and you can see they bend buildings in half to keep with this triangular layout. These two buildings here are bent in half. You got this guy bent. You have this guy here that's in a random, like, kind of diagonal from every other building. This one too. So it was very purposeful. And I measure this outside triangle, and what you get is each side is 666 times 2. And so then I start looking up esoteric meanings for triangles, right? And I run across something I'd never heard of, and it's called the Tetractys. Now, the Tetractys in Greek, which is, I believe, where it originally comes from, ancient Greek, is either the Tetractys or the Tetrad or the Tetractys of the Decad. A triangular figure consisting of 10 points arranged in 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 points in each row. So you can see that here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 points in each row, which is the geometrical representation of the 4th triangular number as a mystical symbol, is very important to the secret worship of Pythagoreanism. There were 4 seasons, and the number was also associated with planetary motions. Now, again, Pythagoreanism, Pythagoras, the 47th rule of Euclid, that all plays heavily into the geometry and the sacred geometry in Freemasonry. Also, the Tetractys is a mystical symbol used by the Pythagoreans, but also by Kabbalah followers. So again, and when I said that Kabbalah was kind of pulled from these ancient Babylonian mysteries, it's also kind of an amalgamation of mystical ideas from different places. So you've got the Greeks getting their little piece of Kabbalah as well. It represents the 4 classical elements and is a triangular figure, blah, blah, blah. Here's what sealed it for me, is that when I see the Tetractys and these 4 points, and that there's triangles, it's a giant triangle with 10 triangles inside of it, I go back and I make all these connecting triangles, and go figure every single side of every triangle in here is 666 feet. Not only that, the very dead center, I don't know if you can remember, but you go all the way back to, and I don't have it on here. You go all the way back to the Kabbalistic tree of life. Each place, here, the 3 down the side, here, the 1 back here, the 3 up this side, these are all points or Sephirot on the Kabbalistic tree of life.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was coming up with this tree of life, I got kind of bummed because there's 2 Sephirot that are kind of missing, right? And they are right here. Can you see my cursor moving?
No.
No, you can't see it. So one Sephirot is between, crap, that sucks. You can't see that. Anyway, there's
We
2
could
Sephirot
before.
huh?
I feel like last time we could, because you were sliding up when you were doing, like, you were going up
I'm
to
not
Oak Island and
exactly
shit.
sure why. Here, let me see something real quick. I think last time I had the actual PowerPoint pulled up, and I was sharing my screen, and I didn't load it into the So let me do that real quick because it is kind of important.
It is crazy though when you were saying how they literally like they curved the building. They could have squared that off, made it
I
two
see
separate
that.
buildings.
Yeah.
Like on the
And
right side
also-
at the point. Like that's wild.
I also got like real like self-conscious about it because I was like, man, why sorry, I'm distracted
Well, like,
looking for
no,
this thing, but
it's all
I
good.
can just talk through it. But I also was looking at it and like, 666, that's too convenient, right? But
it's too many
fits so
coincidences.
perfectly, and it's not 700, and there's so many instances. I haven't even, you know, we got the Tetractys here, but I've got several other alignments that are 666 as well. So anyway, back here in the Tree of Life, in the middle of the so you can see the cross goes down through the Tree of Life, and in the middle of this Tree of Life is the sunken garden at the campus of William and Mary, and two Sephiroth land in the middle of the sunken garden. And I was like, well, dang, it's a big, huge, flat like courtyard. There's no real monuments or markers there that show any points like these buildings do. But it wasn't until I started putting all the other alignments like Nolan's Cross here. So you can see over here on the left side, Nolan's Cross from point A to point E is 429 feet. Well, if you run from point A at William and Mary up at the top of the Wren building, 429 feet, you see where the first two blue lines cross in an X?
Yep.
That is 429 feet. And then from point E to point F is 293 feet. And so if you run from that X down to the bottom of it, you see where all the lines cross in several X's there.
Yeah.
That's exactly 293 feet. So you got your markers right there. Now, sliding that forward to the Tetractys, you also have, and the crazy thing is, this is the dead center of the sunken garden at William and Mary. And the Tetractys, the dead center of that, also crosses in that exact same. There's a Sephiroth there, and there's a Sephiroth at that cross above it, right? On the Tree of Life. So there's no landmarks there, but independently, you put any of these. If you put that Tree of Life there without, or I'm sorry, that Nolan's Cross up there without the Tree of Life, it just looks like those 2 points are in random places. If you put the Tetractys up there, okay, it's in the middle, but what does that mean? But you put them all together, the Tree of Life, Nolan's Cross, this Tetractys, now those points, those Sephiroth that you can't see that aren't marked by a building, they're marked by these other alignments, right? But what's really crazy is if you read, and this is going to drive me friggin' crazy.
All right, so let me ask you quick. Do you think to be so accurate with these ley lines and how they're on them, this has to be some astrology involved in this somehow, right? Because there's no way to be so long ago. Like, what could have been so long ago that they had to navigate exactly where they were? Because, like, obviously the stars are always in the same spot, it looks like, for the most part. So there has to be some type of astrology to this, no?
For sure. And any and several, all the early secret societies at William and Mary, and even the most secretive, most intense one that's still around today, they all have stars in their regalia. And also, if you'll remember from the last time, the bell tower on the Wren building, which is the C-shaped building up towards the top, the original building of William and Mary, the bell tower was not always a bell tower. At the time it was built in the late 1600s, early 1700s, it was the first astronomical observatory in North America. So it was literally the place you would study the stars from to be able to help with navigation and surveying and things like that.
Wow.
But what's crazy is, again, that middle Sephiroth on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, that dead center Sephiroth is known as Tippereth, and it means beauty. And that's great. It's in the middle of the garden. What represents beauty better than this big, beautiful courtyard? But then you have the bottom or base of the Nolan's Cross also lands right there. And that, it's great for beauty too, I guess. But then they divide the Tetractys into rows. So you've got row 1, which is just the 1 dot, and then you've got row 2, which is 2, 3 is 3, and then 4 is 4. And each row has a meaning. Well, the third row is a line connecting 3 points. It represents the second dimension and the philotes, or harmony. And harmony is the marriage of something and beauty. My slide clicker is right over top.
It's the marriage of physical beauty and mental balance.
There you go. So literally, where it just happens to land in a configuration that is sort of separate from the tree of life, it just also happens to land on the same Sephiroth that also means beauty. And again, remember that the Tetractys is a symbol also used by Kabbalists, and not right. And so, it's supposed to represent, it's another configuration of the tree of life. And I'd never heard of this triangle Tetractys thing before, but not only does it work perfectly with the tree of life at William and Mary, but it is its own tree of life and kind of has the same meaning in that the different paths in between the different aspects of God in Kabbalah. Now, I got interested in that, and so I decided to measure the sunken garden. And if you can see the big pink X on the right side of your screen, that is a measurement from corner to corner of the sunken garden, and it's exactly 666 feet, each of those measurements. And where does it meet? Right where the Sephiroth for beauty sits. Then I drew a line connecting the Sephiroth of the Yule building through, actually, you guys, you've already seen that. That's the line that connects to Oak Island, right?
Yeah.
So then I started measuring some other stuff, and you've got this crazy diamond. You see the bright green diamond on your left?
Yeah.
That goes from the crown Sephiroth of the William and Mary Tree of Life over to, you see that little tree that it meets at on your left-hand side? Underneath that tree is a statue of the founder of William and Mary, the guy who went over to England and got the charter from the king and queen. His name is James Blair. We know that we're not sure about him being a Mason because Mason wasn't kind of out of the woodwork yet, but we know that his son was the worshipful master of the lodge in Williamsburg. That's a 666-foot measurement down to the first Sephiroth of the Tree of Life at William and Mary, 666. And then if you see it goes right, and it goes in between the bottom two buildings. That is a statue of Thomas Jefferson that it lands on, 666. And then back to the Wren building, which is 666. Then you've got a statue on your right-hand side. You can see this kind of paler green line that runs down the side. Not very symmetrical or geometric, but it is a line, and it connects James Madison. And where it ends, you can't see them, but there is at the bottom of that screen is where it ends. And right there on the campus is a little tiny courtyard next to one of the buildings. And in that courtyard is 3 statues, and it's 3 busts, all of the Tyler family. So John Tyler was one of the presidents, and one of the other Tylers there was one of the presidents of the university. And then another Tyler there was a military official, maybe Secretary of State. They're a huge old money, old world family in Virginia, the Tylers.
When were they when were they involved over there?
Oh man, you're gonna
Well,
get me on dates.
were
Early
they,
and late, because it's 3 generations of them. It's like father, son, and
were they around like with the start, like at the development times?
Oh yeah, I mean one of them. Yeah, 100%.
Like working with the Stewart family and those guys.
After the Stewarts, but in that transition from Stewart to Masons to the college. What's crazy though about this courtyard is if you stand in the middle of it and you speak. Now this is just an architectural kind of anomaly, but if you stand in that courtyard and you speak, it doesn't sound like your voice is coming from yourself. You have like a disembodied voice. You step out of that courtyard, you sound normal. You say hello, hello, hello while you're standing in that little courtyard. It sounds like your voice is coming from away from you, towards you.
Yeah.
Like it's really weird. I mean, there's a plaque there talking about it and whatnot. Now, what's really crazy is I've come to believe that they laid out the campus of William and Mary to represent a lodge room of Freemasonry. Because when you look at the Christopher Wren building, the main building, I would say that represents the Worshipful Master. Now, this is a line to east and west, just like a Masonic lodge is, where the Wren building, you would come in from the bottom of your left screen here, right? Into a Mason's lodge. You always come in from the west towards the east. The Worshipful Master sits at the far eastern end of the lodge. Now, to the master, the Worshipful Master's right, especially in colonial era lodges, what you'd have is the secretary. Okay, and if you look at the left hand side of the Wren building on your left screen, that wing that comes down is the original kind of administrative and educational hall of William and Mary. So secretary, and then you've got the Worshipful Master being the cross section of the Wren building. And then if you look at the wing on the right side of the Wren building, that is a chapel. That's called the Wren Chapel. Now, on the left hand of the Worshipful Master in a colonial era lodge, you would have the chaplain. Okay. And then in the middle of a lodge, you have a giant open space, right? It's not like a church where you've got the pulpit up front and then you've got kind of stadium seating, perpendicular to the to the pulpit. You've got in a Mason's lodge, you have benches that come in from the sides facing towards the middle. But then there's most of the inside of the lodge, all furniture and everything is kind of pushed to the outer edges, and the middle is empty. And you've got a tesseract, usually the black and white checkered floor. But what you have in the very dead center of that floor is the altar, and that's where the Masonic Bible and the square and compass sit, and they've got a couple candles, and that's where the rituals are based from, right? And so that kind of lands right here where all these lines cross at the Sephirot of Beauty, right? Then, like I told you before, over here to the right side, you've got the statue of Thomas Jefferson at William and Mary. Well, that's right where the warden of the South, or the junior or senior warden, would sit in a lodge. But what sealed it for me was this group of Tylers that I just talked to you about, which is below the last building on your left. Okay. And so that's 3 members of the Tyler family that sit, busts of them sitting at William and Mary. Well, at a Masonic lodge, you have a Tyler as well. The official name for the guy who sits outside on the western end, outside the western wall of a Masonic lodge, sword drawn, is known as a Tyler. And then they go and put in the exact same place a family of Tylers. And so I think that's another one of my theories, is that, not all these statues are ancient. They're not old. Not all of them are super old.
Yeah, 200 years isn't really that longer.
But no, I mean, these Tylers, this is like modern era. You know what I mean? This is 90s, 2000. Jefferson was put there in the 90s. The but that's kind of my overarching theory of William and Mary, is that it was begun by Masons and then continued to be stewarded by Masons adepts over the course right up to modern day. And I don't mean like this, like kind of overlord of William and Mary, that every president or chancellor of William and Mary is a master Mason. But I do believe that there's the whole point in this symbolism and this geomancy. Well, not the whole point, but part of the reason that Masons and mystery schools do this kind of sacred architecture and the ley lines and things like that, part of their entire system is to maintain their legacy, right? And so you put in a college named after the king and queen, right? And it's one of the first colleges in the country. You have faith that that place is going to be around for a long time. Right. So if you imbue that space with the symbolism of your brotherhood, you know that other brothers 100 years down the road, 200 years down the road, even if they're not explicitly told, hey, look at this, this is a Masonic symbol, they're going to be able to look at what is there and they're going to notice it, and they may keep adding to it. And that's what they do. And I think that's what they've done here, whether it be, you know, somebody on a board somewhere. And in talking to Court Lindahl, I gave him that kind of Court Lindahl is an archaeologist, prolific writer on ley lines and geomancy and whatnot. And I kind of ran that theory by him. And not only is he an archaeologist and a prolific writer about like esotericism, but he also was an archaeologist in Williamsburg and is from the area as well, and worked at William and Mary as an archaeologist for a number of years. And when I told him this theory, he was like, oh no, absolutely. He's like, I've been contacted by people who know that some of this stuff is there.
He's done some work on Oak Island too. He's been on the TV show.
Oh yeah,
Oak Island a bunch too.
He's got one of his theory about the Jacobite connection, which is part of my theory about William and Mary, was voted like the best possible theory of what's going on at Oak Island. And he's definitely influenced and by listening to him, he hasn't done as much work on the geomancy of William and Mary itself, but definitely of Williamsburg and stuff, and then Oak Island. And then his research has helped point me towards some things, and I've brought some stuff to his attention. That's cool. He's great. He's one of our Mount Rushmore on our podcast. Oh, yeah. So again, going back to the 666 alignments, you've got another one here, and that's from the Crown Sephirot of the Wren building over to this very strange where this left corner of this kind of lightning bolt configuration is. There is a cemetery in the middle of this campus, and it has one of the ex-presidents of the campus buried there, last name Ewell, and actually who Ewell Hall is named after. He was responsible for getting after the during the Civil War, the school shut down. Nobody really knew if it was going to get going again. He was a master Mason. He came back, got the school up and running again. And so he's kind of a important guy on the campus. It's 666 feet from the Crown Sephirot to his tombstone. And then from his tombstone over to Thomas Jefferson, it's 666 feet. And then from Thomas Jefferson down to the first Sephirot of the Tree of Life is 166 feet. And so we have all these 666 in codes and whatnot. And so I know that there's a Tree of Life at Oak Island. I know that Nolan's Cross originated on Oak Island. I know that my Tree of Life points directly to Oak Island, and not only to Oak Island, but it lands directly on one of the points of Nolan's Cross. I was like, well, maybe, if I overlay that same size Tetractys in the same way that it is in William and Mary over the Oak Island Tree of Life, maybe I'll find something. So I do. And what I find is that it fits on the island, but also that it's the only place it fits. If you turn this triangle in any direction, the points end up in the water. You can't. This is exactly where it sits. I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? But it is interesting. And what's also interesting about it is that it lands directly in the same place, the dead center of it. Beauty lands on top of Beauty. And then also, I decided to find the dead center of the of Oak Island. And so I found and built my own kind of rose compass there. And this is a perfect east-west, north-south compass, and the dead center of Oak Island is directly in where that Beauty Sephiroth sits, where the Tetractys, the middle of the Tetractys, the Sephiroth of Beauty, the bottom of Nolan's Cross. That is the dead center of Oak Island.
So if you go, can you go back 2 pictures real quick? One more.
Yeah.
No, to the Oak Island one. So the one that's in the top right, that's pretty close to, on the right page by Smith's Cove. That's close to the Eye of the Swamp, right?
The Eye of the Swamp would actually be, I believe, the Eye of the Swamp would be
because there's a lot of shit they find in the eye. They've been finding in the swamp. It's just tough.
The Eye of the Swamp. Do you see the first kind of crossbar of the blue Tree of Life? Like,
yeah, you're right.
Kind of that triangle. I believe the Tree of Life is dead center of that.
Wow.
If they wanted to talk to me, and I've tried to get a hold of them, but they talk to court. They're not going to talk to me. I haven't written any books, but if they wanted to talk to me, I would tell them, one, to look for something right in the dead center here, where Nolan's Cross ends, where the Tetractys center is, and where the Tree of Life Beauty Sephiroth is. That's one place I would say would be interesting to look. I think every point of every single point that is of the Tetractys, every triangle angle is a place where they found something, or near where they found something. That's not saying a ton, because they found stuff all over that place.
Right.
The other point that I would suggest, you see where the my line from William and Mary meets the Nolan's Cross crossbar. And then also 2 points. One of the angles is very close to that as well. I would say kind of near the swamp there. It's actually where they found that old kind of Roman road is right there. So I think there might be something there.
Well, they found like a well in one area.
I believe.
And
Well,
then
a trip.
in the swamp, they found more of. They've been finding wood of like a ship, so it looks like there's like shipwreck in the middle. And then
and I believe
like another road or something.
Yeah, and I think their theory is that it was 2 islands and that they dammed it up and created one big island, which makes that kind of center point all the more interesting to me, because it was definitely, if it's man-made and it was 2 islands, that wouldn't be the center. Unless they man-made it into one island, then it becomes the center,
to hide the entrance to get in, because they got.
So when we're going on a trip,
the flood.
I'd love to go there, man. I just want to chat with those guys.
Well, because they had the flood tunnels. They already found a few flood tunnels off of Smith's Cove.
Yep.
Where they literally, there's 4, it's like fingers basically. There's 4 flood tunnels that are said to be booby trapped or whatever. And if you get into it, it's just going to flood out the treasure and everything else. They say that allegedly the Holy Grail could possibly be there.
Well, I have some, if we go further, I have a theory of what may have crossed through there.
Okay.
And I have a theory of what kind of it, just in general, what places like this mean. Now, remember that it's clear that something was buried at Oak Island at some point. There's far too much man-made workings underground to believe that they just dug holes like that in tunnels for fun. And then, of course, back in Williamsburg, underneath the, all the kind of renovation and everything of Williamsburg started after the Rockefellers found out that Manly P. Hall's wife was claiming that there was a vault containing Francis Bacon or Shakespeare secrets underneath the Bruton Parish Church, like a block away from William and Mary. That's when the Rockefellers swooped in and bought the whole town, kicked everybody out, and started turning it into a living museum that you can't do archaeology in unless you have their permission. And so there's a supposedly a vault in Williamsburg. There was some sort of vault on Oak Island. I think that overall these are almost safety deposit boxes for possibly. My theory is that you went from the early mystery schools and the ancient Middle East up to the Templars kind of finding and figuring something out over there, all the way through from the Merovingians and the Carolinians and the Plantagenets into the Templars into the Stuarts and Rosicrucians, and then Stuarts and Rosicrucians right into Freemasonry, and then the whole Jacobite Revolution. Well, within that, within all those people, you have a lot of peoples who needed to hide treasure. You've got the Templars who escaped persecution in the 1300s, and they escaped from the port of La Rochelle in the south of France. They escaped with, they never found they were the richest people on earth, and they never found any of their wealth, right? And 18 ships filled with Templars in 1307, 18 ships filled with Templars, and theoretically their treasure, their wealth, escaped from La Rochelle and were never seen from again, the ships or the people. And the theory is that they spent the next couple hundred years hiding stuff, moving stuff, exploring into North America. And so that's where that Templar connection in North America comes from. And then if those secrets and that organization, the Templars, morphed into something that, that they, by necessity, because they were outlawed, was that the Stuart dynasty. And when you look at the stories of an unknown cavalry who showed up in the middle of a battle, the last battle that Robert the Bruce had before Scotland gained its independence, flying the Templar flag. And it was so terrifying to the English army across the field from them that they ran from the battlefield. And that's when Scotland gets its independence. And that is Robert the Bruce, the beginning of the Stuart line. Right. Now the Stuarts then become kings in the 1600s of England, but they have a number of years. And even while their dynasty is on top during the 1600s in England, they're on and off and on and off. They chop one of the Stuarts' heads off. They have the English Civil War. They have the Glorious Revolution. So Stuart kings are constantly getting deposed, dying, getting killed. And I think the writing was on the wall for the Stuarts that they needed a place of their own to maintain their family line. Because remember, the Stuarts come directly from the Merovingians. On the female side, there's a line of lineage that comes from the Merovingian dynasty. And the Merovingian dynasty, again, is the dynasty that claims a direct bloodline to Christ. They are the Magdalene female side of the line of the supposed bloodline of Christ between the kid from Mary Magdalene and supposedly Christ, who in Mary Magdalene, the story goes that her and the kid sought refuge and hid out in France, where the Templars, they're given that port in the south of France by the Plantagenets, and the Plantagenets come from the Carolinians, and the Carolinians of Charlemagne come from the Merovingians, and so there is tentative, but a pretty clear line. Now the thing is that it all runs from the female side that connects all them, whereas all kind of lineages are usually followed down through the through the paternal side. And so you'll get a lot of people saying, well, there's no connection between the Merovingians and the Carolinians of Charlemagne. Well, there is 100% direct through the female side of the line. And then the people will say there's no real connection between the Carolinians and the Plantagenets. But there absolutely is, both with geography being in the south of France and both with the female line. And again, when you're talking about, people who claim, and I don't necessarily believe it, but I do believe they used it to imbue their dynasty and their family name with importance. Their whole thing is the divine feminine and this almost goddess worship, this feminine power. So it actually makes sense that the line would be just as important coming down through the female line. Anyway, so you've got all this, you've got that. Now, when you draw a line you take that same line that goes from William and Mary all the way to Oak Island.
Yep.
Okay. You follow that all the way through. It turns from light purple into like a dark purple, right? It goes all the way through Oak Island, and it ends up in the north of London. But not only anywhere in the north of London, I was hoping, I crawled every inch of this line all the way through England, hoping it landed on like a statue of Francis Bacon or like some place where somebody's head got cut off. It doesn't.
A couple 7-Elevens.
Yeah, a couple of those, like the British versions of Walmart, like big box stores and whatnot. One place it does fall on is what's the name of the school at in Harry Potter? It's like Gryffindor. No, that's one of the things. I don't know. I've never watched.
I never watched Harry Potter.
Hogwarts. So the building, it's now an apartment complex, but the building that Hogwarts is filmed in and based on, it definitely goes over that. It probably doesn't mean anything, but what it does go over that probably means something is a very little known kind of estate area in the north of London called Bruce Castle. Now, this building right here on your right is Bruce Castle. Bruce Castle is called Bruce Castle because it's built on land that was owned by Robert the Bruce. Remember that before Robert the Bruce won Scottish independence from the English, the lords of England, or I'm sorry, of Scotland, they had sort of this begrudging working relationship with the King of England. And so they had lands both in Scotland and in England. Well, this was a small portion of land that was owned by the Bruce family in England. Obviously, once Robert the Bruce won the Scottish independence, it gets taken from them, and it then becomes estately owned by different lords and whatnot. Very interesting lords, and actually one of them has a strong connection with Francis Bacon. But on this property over here where you see that it says Round Tower, this is the oldest construction on the entire grounds. They don't know when it was built, but they know that it is a really, really deep well. And this line goes directly over top of this round tower. So this is a deep well on a piece of property owned by the beginning of the Stuart line in England. Find it interesting that this line goes over top of it, but it becomes even more interesting when you keep following that line and it goes directly through Istanbul. Now, Istanbul used to be Constantinople. That was the seat of the papacy. That was during Constantinople during Crusade times. That was the Vatican, essentially. And when you continue going further, it lands in Antiochia. Antiochia is Antioch of, biblical times. And not only does it land in Antioch in Turkey, but it lands directly on the front door. If you look over here, it's blurry, but if you look over here on the right side of your screen, it lands directly on the front door of St. Peter's Cave Church. Now, St. Peter's Cave Church, directly after Christ's ascension, the early church in the Middle East was outlawed. The Romans didn't like them. The Jews didn't like them. Nobody liked the Christians. They thought they were crazy. They were out killing them. That's after that, they start throwing Christians in to be eaten by the lions and whatnot. Well, this was a cave church in Antioch that the Apostle Peter, literally one of the guys at the Last Supper, this is where he came and preached in the first century after the crucifixion in secret. Okay. And what's really crazy about this is that during the Crusades, there was a guy named something Peter. Okay. So during the Crusades, there's a bunch of Christians in Antioch. I don't remember the timeline completely unless I have it in front of me, but Antioch switches hands a few times. And the Saracens, at this one point, there's a bunch of Christians holed up in Antioch and they can't get out because the Saracens have the place surrounded and they're besieging them. They're just waiting for them to die off or surrender, right? Well, they're not going to do it. They're not going to surrender. This kind of peasant guy in Antioch goes to the bishop and says, I had a vision last night. St. Andrew came to me in a dream and told me that the Spear of Destiny is buried inside St. Peter's Cave Church underneath the altar, and that any army that carries the Spear of Destiny or the Lance of Longinus, as it's called, this holy relic, the spear that pierced the side of Christ, no army that carries that in the front of the army can be defeated. Now, this is the same Spear of Destiny that Hitler and the Nazis went searching for during World War II. This thing was highly sought after. So, on the 15th of 1098, the army of the First Crusade discovered the Holy Lance, the spear that pierced Christ's side. And it's interesting because this guy, he tells these people and they're not convinced. Finally, he convinces them to dig. They dig and dig and dig. They don't find anything. But then that guy, Peter, jumps down in the hole and finds this spearhead, right? And I mean, it's even documented, from the time people who were there were like, yeah, the guy was only wearing a shirt. He didn't have anything on him. And including the bishop was standing there, and in his personal writings, that particular bishop I can't remember his name, but that particular bishop, it says in his personal writings, he's like, when the other guys were down there digging, I did see some metal, but I thought it was nothing. And then he jumped down there, grabbed that piece of metal and was like, look, and it ended up being the spear point. Now, was it the point of the spear that that pierced Christ's side? We don't know. There's two other spear points that are held in other cathedrals all around the world that claim to be the Spear of Destiny as well, but it doesn't matter. In the middle of the First Crusade, when these Christians are besieged in the city of Antioch, they find this spearhead. It becomes the tip of the spear that pierced Christ's side, and it gives them what they need to get out of there, right? So that guy Peter So they find it, and then he comes back to them the next day and tells them that he got more, another vision from St. Andrew, who guaranteed victory in another vision. The Crusaders sailed out from Antioch. They were led by their best soldier, the Norman warrior Bohemond of Toronto, with the Holy Lance carried by Raymond of Aguilar. Desperately weak from hunger, they were in an exalted mood, and some cried out that they could see celestial cavalrymen on white horses riding to help them. This is like a mass of people. This isn't like, one or two guys telling this story. Bearing white banners and led by St. George in a berserk frenzy, they sent the besieging Saracens packing and slaughtered many of them. So they made it out. Whether it was, psychological, they had this thing, and that meant that they were going to win. Regardless, that piece became a holy relic at that moment, whether it was just an old pointy piece of metal that ended up in the ground, or it really was the holy relic that this Peter of Bartholomew claimed it was. It became a holy relic. Those were the types of things that were sought after by the Templars, found, hidden, stowed away. And so when that line goes directly from that front door all the way through Constantinople, which coincidentally, Constantinople was the place that spearhead was taken to and held for many years in a cathedral, being pointed to as the Spear of Destiny. And then that line continues on through a piece of Bruce property, and then continues on to Oak Island, and then continues on to Williamsburg, where this important vault is. I believe it points to this theory of these kind of almost safety deposit boxes all over the country, where they're hiding these things. I mean, there's a point where the French crown jewels were gone, missing forever. The Jacobites stole a bunch of money, had a whole bunch of treasure to fund their revolutions. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows where it went. Nobody knows where they stored it. Oak Island, literally named New Scotland. That's what Nova Scotia means. I believe that could have been it. So.
Yeah, we need to take a trip and go to the center of Oak Island. We need to go to the center of the.
Bro, I wanted to go for a tour from
William
there.
and Mary. I think William and Mary looks pretty cool, dude.
The oak trees being up there, bro. There's
absolutely.
A lot.
And I think the treasure could be there too. Like it's all aligned.
I think if you ask me, I think that there was something important in both of those places, and I don't think it's there anymore.
Yeah, well, like the sunken garden. What made that garden sink?
Well, it was built like that.
Oh, okay.
But it was built by a man named Charles M. Robinson, a master mason, who also rebuilt the Lodge of Williamsburg for the Rockefellers.
Yep.
But I will say that there is, there are anybody who's from Williamsburg knows that there's tunnels that go underneath that entire city, right? Officially, they'll say no, there's no tunnels. Right. And when pressed on it, the city will say, well, there is tunnels, and they were put in during the renovation by the Rockefellers and the renovators, and they're steam tunnels. And they're not. They're old tunnels that they ran steam pipes through because they were already there. And you can go back super, super far and look up newspaper articles, because one of the things that the secret societies and fraternities that William and Mary did really early on was they had their pledges, or their new brothers would have to enter the tunnels through the Wren Yard, and you can take those tunnels all the way underneath the Wren Chapel, and underneath the Wren Chapel is a crypt that contains all of the the bones and caskets of all the founding fathers of Williamsburg, the Randolphs and all these people, and they would send them down there, and they were supposed to retrieve a bone and then come back. Now, coincidentally, these are the same secret societies and fraternities and whatnot who create Phi Beta Kappa. And I have another presentation where I connect Phi Beta Kappa, which is the original, very first Greek letter fraternity in the whole country. And it was a secret society when it was created. It was not a it was with a jewel, an oath, hand signs, secret meeting places. It was not the Phi Beta Kappa was not the honor society that it is now. And it only changed to that after the Freemasons got in some hot water in the 1820s because they killed a guy who was putting out Masonic secrets. And then it was, you know, the Masons were persona non grata. That's when all the different weird arms of Masonry are created. The Shriners and the Jesters and the Knights of Pythias and the Red Man Society. That's also when other secret societies are created. It's also when Phi Beta Kappa goes from being a secret society at William and Mary, Yale, and Harvard and stops being a secret society, and they go public and they get rid of the secret society aspect. And the secretary of Phi Beta Kappa at Yale was William Huntington Russell at the time, and he was pissed off that they were getting rid of the secrecy side, and he creates Skull and Bones in 1832.
That's when it all really kicks off for us.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't have it on here.
Let me ask you this real quick. Is it
a
coincidence that Camp Perry and William and Mary are exactly 13 minutes away from each other?
Probably not, dude. I could go on for about Camp Perry as well. Camp Perry is the most secretive, covert CIA base in the country. It's literally where they call it the farm, and that's where they send covert operators to learn covert operations. They call it bond school. They like lovingly refer to it as bond school. How to shoot from a car, how to flip a car, how to drive a speedboat, how to withstand torture and implement torture,
and walk like a ninja.
Yep.
Basically, Jack Ryan.
Superhuman.
And there is
super soldiers.
There has and always will be a CIA presence on the campus of William and Mary. They recruit heavily from William and Mary students. The CIA goes hand in hand. If you keep following that line down towards Jamestown, it runs over Walsingham. Walsingham was the spy master for either King James or Queen Elizabeth. Walsingham Academy, which was originally, I go on and on, man.
Damn, man. That's wild.
It's crazy how everything ties together.
Yeah, I'd like to get you back on, talk more about Skull and Bones, and hear a little bit more about your other
believe it or not, I have a presentation that I haven't totally finished it, but it's good enough for a podcast. But it connects, funny enough, Blackbeard the pirate and his missing head through Phi Beta Kappa into Skull and Bones. Yeah.
No shit.
And I believe that his missing
skull to drink out of
is in the tomb at Yale. Yeah, that's the skull that they drank out of in the Apollo room above the Raleigh Tavern, which is where the early Freemasons in Williamsburg met before they had a lodge building. It's also where Thomas Jefferson and a bunch of students created Phi Beta Kappa. Same room.
You ever see the movie Skull and Bones?
Yeah.
With Paul Walker in it?
No, it's not Paul Walker. It's the other guy. But I know. Is it Paul Walker?
Paul Walker.
The guy from Mighty Ducks.
It's him and Paul Walker.
Paul Walker. Is he the bad guy?
They're best friends.
Okay.
They're best friends.
Okay. Yeah. I watched that way before I was ever into conspiracy, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute, man. Yeah.
I told them
that island that they go to, that's a real thing that Skull and Bones owns.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somewhere.
George W. Bush.
It's nuts, man. Well, we got to get you back for sure. We can always chop it up. We can go anywhere in the conspiracy world, man. I love it. I'm a big fan, like I said before, of the Oak Island show. So once I heard you on with Mark and my family thinks I'm crazy, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Because I wanted to ask you, a few of the questions I did to see where, especially like where you thought like the treasure. Do you think there is a treasure still there on Oak Island? Or do you think they got to it back in the day and it was just
so
like you said, a deposit spot and go pick it up later?
Yeah, I think there's been several treasures in there over the years. The big one that connects William and Mary and Williamsburg to it is in the 1680s. Francis Nicholson, who was a very popular colonial governor of Virginia, who was based out of Williamsburg and not helped, but he kind of facilitated the creation of the campus of William and Mary. Okay. So in the 1680s, he was the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Now, there was a guy from the Massachusetts Bay Colony named Sir William Phipps. He wasn't a sir yet. He was actually this kind of rags to riches nobody who went from being a nobody to being a sailor to being a captain. And then when Francis Nicholson was the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Sir William Phipps gets a charter or whatever to become a privateer, specifically to go down to the Gulf. I believe it was the Gulf, or it might have been the east coast of Florida, and find this treasure galleon called the Concepcion. It was a Spanish treasure galleon that sunk somewhere off the coast of Florida, and it had 6 tons of silver on it. And it was his job to go down there, locate it, and then salvage as much of the silver as he could. Well, he goes down there and he finds it. Okay. So theoretically, Francis Nicholson should have been aware of this. He's the governor. It comes directly from the King of England to go down there and find this treasure. He finds it. And now remember, this is during, if I'm not mistaken, yes, this is right before the Glorious Revolution, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that the Stuarts were still in power in England, right? And this is during the transition time when the Stuarts get booted out of power. So Nicholson is basically a Stuart loyalist, and Phipps goes and finds this silver, and he's supposed to bring it all back to England, but only 3 tons make it back to England. And he says that they couldn't get it all, and when they went back, they couldn't find the wreck again. So theoretically, he found it all, and he brought 3 tons of silver back to England and hid the other 3 tons somewhere. Well, Francis Nicholson, the governor at the time, then goes and becomes the governor of Virginia. And Sir William Phipps, this up jump nobody, then takes over and becomes the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And guess where Francis Nicholson then goes after he's the governor of Virginia and starts William and Mary? Guess where he goes after that? He becomes the governor of Nova Scotia.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Would you look at that?
Follow the ley
Imagine
lines all
that.
the way up, the way up.
And they claim there's not a big connection between Phipps and Francis Nicholson, but Francis Nicholson, the only thing we know about his family is that he had a sister in North America and she lived in Canada, and her last name was Phipps, but they don't know who her husband was. So,
Jeez.
yeah.
Dude, this is great, man. This is great. We got to do this again.
Hey, man, anytime.
Skull and Bones and stuff, and then obviously if your co-host Daniel's ever available, he's always more than welcome to join us, man. Love to get you both of you on here.
We got another ley line that runs through 2 points on that of the we were talking about Skull and Bones. I forgot to mention, I'll end with this, but we have a ley line that runs through 2 points on the Tree of Life at William and Mary and lands directly on top of the tomb, which is the Skull and Bones house in New Haven, Connecticut.
Oh,
I
shit.
showed that to Mark, and he was like,
Mark's big in that. Yeah,
"What?" Yeah.
that's mind blowing. As I say,
So,
yeah, man. Let's do it
producer.
again.
All right, just hit me
Producer
up.
of Skulls.
I'm down.
Let's do it again. Awesome. Why don't you let the
Awesome, Ernie.
listeners once again let them know where they can find you and when you drop your episodes?
I will, and I'm going to change these. But our YouTube channel is, I'm an idiot and made different names for everything.
Okay.
Our YouTube channel is VA Con Lovers Podcast, all one word. Our Instagram is VA Conspiracy Lovers, all one word. and then our Facebook page is Virginia is for Conspiracy Lovers, and then
Alright.
obviously just Virginia is for Conspiracy Lovers anywhere that you find podcasts. So
Spotify, Apple, everything.
we're
Perfect.
we're moving
Love it.
up, man. We're getting from doing like you guys show, and we just did Occult Rejects for the second time.
Nice.
We're getting Danny Puckchuck, that guy, comedian dude.
Okay.
We're getting some big bumps. So if you guys ever want to come on our show, obviously be happy to have you guys.
hell yeah, man.
We'll rap about some stuff.
Yeah, we can
Sweet,
chop
man.
it up. I can go. I
Yeah.
can go anywhere in the conspiracy world, man. I enjoy it. So
The
Cool,
sexiest
man.
beard in the podcast game too. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Rock, man.
awesome.
it fits perfect. You know,
It does. It
Love
does,
it.
for sure.
I miss
No.
mine.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you. We'll catch up with you soon. We're gonna take
Absolutely.
a quick break here, and we're gonna recap this episode. We'll be right back with you shortly. Part 2, boys. Nothing but bangers. We did it again. Another great episode of Conspiracy Chaos. Our guest. I mean, we literally. I literally from the jump, I did the intro, I took the drop back, I handed it off to him, and he ran down the sideline with it untouched, bro. His knowledge, his retention of knowledge is
It's insane.
incredible, man. People,
Hey,
it's
Raj,
insane, dude.
you know what? I never knew you had glasses, bro. Put those things back on for a second. Put those glasses
Yeah,
back on.
I only
Come on.
really, I
Come
should
on.
wear them more.
You had to have been getting like you were really fucking getting into it if you put your glasses on, bro. You were
Well, he
reading shit.
posted,
You
he
were
put up a couple things that were really small text, and I was like, I did
know.
not see
Mhm.
that
I know.
shit.
I
right
never
now. I
seen
was
you
like,
in all of podcast, our time doing podcasts. Put glasses.
Oh
I
man, got
usually
some
don't.
It
glasses.
had to have been super
I
important.
don't
bro.
read a lot.
I
Though.
love it.
So if I like really have to like
No, I
read
know.
something like small, I will put them on.
I
There's certain
I
times
just
I'll
you
put
didn't
'em
make
on
your
for-
screen bigger. I just made my screen bigger. I saw it fine.
I did, and
went
I
to
still
super
couldn't see
size.
a little bit.
Yeah,
My eyes are shut. I'm
Blind
tired.
people,
That's why.
Blind fuck yeah. No, I
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
No, he was actually really awesome. I told him before we started recording, like I actually sat down and enjoyed part 1 yesterday because throughout the whole recording, I like tended to go in and like see what he was talking about because he was going so deep. I was like searching for what the fuck he was even talking about because
Right.
it
This
was
is
like
also
so
new to you.
yeah, it was also exactly. So like I kind of missed part of like what he was saying. So I really I enjoyed listening to him, and I'm looking forward to sitting down and listening to part 2 because he's had a lot to say, man.
So
It's a lot to suck
watching
up.
the TV
Lots.
series
It's awesome.
Oak Island, definitely like a lot of the topics you brought up. There's different people they've had on the show who brought up a lot of those topics in the History Channel. So that's like where I got most of my knowledge of like being able to like counteract one of his questions, or like when I asked him about the magic with a K, the dark arts magic. Like I learned about that on Tripoli. So like, but like that's just like minor things. His retention of knowledge of some like how deep he goes, and like when I'm like basically trying to like he mentioned somebody, I'm following along with it on like Googling
They'll
it
do
and
on my
shit.
phone.
And I'm like, yo, he's not missing a beat. He's just going off the top, dude.
Yeah.
Like this is impressive, man. And like to go as deep in his research to follow the ley lines that far down to like literally hit like every 7-Eleven on his way out. Like it's crazy, dude. It's
All
crazy.
the 666 is everywhere. Like
Everywhere.
How many
Occult
measures?
symbolism everywhere.
Holy shit.
And then I'm really excited now to get into the Skull and Bones topic with him, to hear about what what the New Haven and all that, because that gets a little bit closer to our neck of the woods, Mike, and up for me and Anthony up here in the Northeast,
Connecticut, right?
So, yeah, not far.
You know what I started watching
Couple
that's up
hours.
there by your guys' neck of the woods?
Yeah.
Hightown.
Hightown.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
We
First
gotta
couple
start watching.
episodes.
I'm through 3.
Okay.
Man,
That's
it's
where I'm
kinda-
at.
It's intense.
I told
Yo,
you.
she
Like, the
gets
girl
into
from
it, bro.
The girl from Chicago Fire, I would have never thought.
Yeah,
Mm,
Jackie.
know?
Jackie's a whole, it's a whole new character.
I told
Yeah.
you.
Isn't it
Whole
funny?
new.
Like, we'll get off conspiracy for a second, but like, so for example, the dude from The Office, and then he
Mhm.
plays in like Jack Ryan in 13 Hours, John Krasinski or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I never watched The Office, so I only seen him as like an action actor, like a badass in 13 Hours and a badass
Yeah.
in Jack Ryan. And then I watched an episode of The Office. I'm like, yo, turn this shit off. Like, what is this, bro? Like, I can't watch him like this. This is weird.
Yeah.
It's funny how like you protect people when you first like see him in action and shit. But
yeah, I told you the writer's a closet freak, bro.
it's great. It's really great.
For sure.
Right?
My wife was actually
Isn't
really
she?
interested when I told her you had her on the Upstate Golf Guides. He's like, what, really? She's like, what, really? I'm like, yeah, because he was, you know, obviously you're basing around Cape Cod in the beginning
With the
there.
Cape Cod. Yeah.
Then it really, it's a pretty cool,
That shit
cool
like that though.
show. Huh?
What's that? No.
Is that place like that?
Oh, Provincetown? Yes, that is 100%. Like, that's how Provincetown is the very tip.
Yeah, you ain't really taking the kids there. You got a lot to explain.
No, yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy,
Okay.
bro.
I didn't know because I told her I was like, I'm pretty sure it's kind of like a true
That's- yeah,
story.
but-
like this is really how it is.
So
and stuff.
listen,
And then
Mike,
I
where
showed
we
her,
go, like,
showed her
Yeah.
my girl, the guy you're gonna have on the podcast.
Oh,
The
Cito.
dude just
Yep.
double tapped that chick right in the face, dude.
Yeah. The
Dude,
two,
he's
yeah.
like, oh,
Was Charlie
you're
Hart in the
you're Sherry? Yeah, how you doing? Plop, plop.
pop,
Yeah,
pop.
all right. Damn, I was like, yo, this shit's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, damn, we're doing this right off the bat.
really good show. Really good show.
Yeah,
Don't go
it's,
too much further because I didn't go any further past that really. But yeah, and I know you got her coming back on Upstate. We'll have to promote that on here when she does. And we're changing it up a little bit from what we had scheduled. So the other day we had on Danny from the Rabbit Hole Conspiracy Podcast, and we were going to drop that for tomorrow's the episode you're currently listening to. So at the end of that episode, which will be on Monday, instead you're going to hear an ending saying this episode's coming out. But we figured we'd put these out back to back. I think this is a really dope episode, man. I think we're doing pretty good, man, and we're continuing to grow. We appreciate the support, continued support. We'll go back to doing some lives here as well. Get those up and going, try to get some more of a following there. But following the page, make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, leave a review on Instagram or on Apple. Leave Spotify reviews, YouTube, comment, put a couple comments, leave
Anything
a comment.
helps.
Yeah, anything helps. You know, it takes 2 seconds to hit like. So and subscribe. So subscribe to the page, and we appreciate the support, but let's continue to grow this bad boy and really get Conspiracy Chaos off the ground.
Yes,
You boys, you guys got anything before we close out? Another just
yeah, I'm going to
dope
bed.
episode, man. A lot of knowledge.
Awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. I like it.
All
I
right.
like when I get to research stuff all the time and let somebody else.
Yeah, because I'll go back when I'm chilling and like look at some of these things. Like the Stewart family is an interesting family to me. And then he mentioned the Tyler family. The Tyler family is another one. Like, who are these people? Like, these are names I've never heard of. I wonder if they have any correlation to the P family.
I was on
Like,
Francis Bacon for like hours
Mhm.
the other night, just digging
That's a
deep
fun
into
one.
Francis Bacon and the Shakespeare whole collab there. But that was wild. But yeah,
It's a
man,
good
you
one.
can go on and on with it.
we
Absolutely.
can. Well, we'll wait
All right,
till
bro.
next time. Check out Monday's episode. Check this episode out. Make sure you guys go check out Virginia's for Conspiracy Lovers. Ernie and his co-host Daniel. They really go deep into it. A bunch of different topics. They're just getting off the ground as well. So go give them some support. And like I said, make sure you guys subscribe and like this. Leave a comment on YouTube. Helps in the algorithm. We'll see you on Monday with Danny from Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. Talk to you then. Peace.
Peace.
Follow the breadcrumbs, follow moonlight schemes. Hidden agendas ain't as crazy as they seem. Voices in the dark amplifying dreams. Conspiracy chaos, nothing's what it seems.